We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I remain your host, Mark Angelides, and we continue to be joined by Liberty Nation's executive editor, Leesa K. Thanks for sticking around, Leesa.
I'm still hanging in there.
Only just. Well, I'd really like to talk about campaign energy, because I think we've witnessed since the Democratic National Nominating Convention, where Kamala Harris was pushing this idea of joy, and it was all about the good vibes. And that was what was promised to the nation. And we've seen that just humble into, well, let's be fair, despair and desperation, which is probably not what you want going into an election. Whereas on the converse side, you've got Donald Trump's campaign. He's having the time of his life. He's hanging out at McDonald's. I mean, let's be fair. That is Donald Trump's dream, right? To hang out in McDonald's right next to the fry cooker. The man likes his McDonald's, but he's having the time of his life.
Don't you love the answer to the question, what part of McDonald's, what's your favorite thing at McDonald's? And he answers, all of it.
Yeah.
That's just so funny. That's going down as one of the greatest political stunts, perhaps, in American history. It just really worked in his favor. More thousands of people. I don't want to say how many, but thousands of people showed up at that McDonald's, and he was enjoying working that fryer.
He really was. The funny thing is how the media tried to spin this into a Michael Dukakis moment with the...
But it really wasn't. It really wasn't. It was just the opposite.
It was the opposite, yeah. And the reason, I think, is because Trump has never been a person to take himself too seriously.
Right, exactly. He's always joking around. And the problem is, I think some of the Democrats have learned to hate Donald Trump because they take him literally. And he does talk in absolutes, and he does talk in a lot of effusive language. So if you take him literally, you get yourself into trouble, because I think a lot of times he's just jesting.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be dictator on day one,
I know, and people are using that still. You be a dictator for one day. Really? We have the entire history of the Roman Empire to know that, people don't give up being a dictator.
Yeah.
Sometimes they force the Senate to make them dictator for life, but it was not easily handed over.
It's interesting. If you look at the issues, Donald Trump has the American people agree with Donald Trump more than they agree with Kamala Harris on the issues. And, this is true for so many things with Donald Trump. People go for it, but then it's his personality that kind of gets in the way for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, that's what he's got to overcome. But if people are just voting on the issues, Trump's got it hands down. But they're not. A lot of people are voting on personality. And especially, I think a lot of women are voting on personality. They find his personality really rude, crude, and lewd.
Yeah, it's a lot of people think that Donald Trump is basically his own worst enemy in terms of his electoral chances. Notably, I think it was
Let me just cut in 1 second. One issue that I think is interesting. This week they did some polling on democracy, and guess who comes out as the defender of democracy?
I saw this. Yeah, Donald Trump. That's got to be a surprise to the entire Harris campaign. Yeah,
who do you trust more? And people are saying Donald Trump. That's very interesting polling. That's very interesting.
It is. It kind of gets to the point about what we're talking about with energy. And Leesa, I know you're a big fan of my political betting column. Well, it's not just political betting column; it's a countdown.
I love your horse race column. Yeah,
horse race guy. If you get a chance, go to Liberty Nation and read it, listeners. It's good fun. We've got the latest polling. We've got also a good analytical breakdown of the polling and what that actually means. But we
really
also do the betting markets. And for me, Leesa, I think the betting markets are possibly the most fascinating part of following this, the fear and loathing on the campaign trail, as it were, because these are cash bettors. They're laying their money down on something. So that sort of gives an air of confidence. And just at the time of recording, I'd like to give you the very latest numbers. And for perspective, in 2020, around this time, Joe Biden was leading 4-7, which is,
right.
It's like a 65% chance of winning the election, whereas Donald Trump had around the mid-30s chance of winning the election. So it was very much in favor of Joe Biden. And this time around, those numbers are pretty much the opposite. So time of recording, Trump has a more than 61% chance of winning the election compared to Harris's under 38% chance. And all the money seems to be betting on Trump winning the Electoral College and Kamala winning the popular vote, which is actually kind of what we would expect if Trump were to win, right?
Exactly. That is very interesting. You know, I wanted to bring up one thing. I saw an interview with Melania Trump, and she was hyping her book. And they said to her, you know, what do you think is going to happen during the election? And she just answered very, you know, she's, I think, a woman of few words, or she seems to be. She said, Americans are going to have to decide what they want. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really quite interesting that she said that. Do they want somebody that's going to sound nice, or do they want somebody that's going to defend them vociferously, or do they want somebody that, you know, maybe changes their mind and is a little more fluid and a little more open, or do they want somebody that has, you know, clear, decisive goals? And I think there's something to be said for that.
I think you're absolutely right. And there's actually polling that supports that, believe it or not. There was some recent polling about, I think it was Rasmussen reports. They really are, they are one of the gold standard.
Yeah, I like Rasmussen, yeah.
Places. But it was the question of competence or compassion. And the registered voters, they always use registered voters.
Oh, that's
sorry, likely voters, my mistake. And they asked, you know, would you prefer a leader with somebody who is competent or compassionate? Now, naturally, I think, I mean, that might be my mindset, but the majority opted for competence, right, over compassion, because, you know, you've got somebody...
They break that down gender-wise, I don't know.
Well, here's the funny thing. So they went further and they said, who do you apply competence to and compassion to? And guess what the result was?
I don't know.
Donald Trump came first in both.
Really?
Isn't that bizarre?
Oh, that is interesting.
It's very much against what the legacy media kind of pushes.
Right.
You know, for example, Joe Biden was all about empathy. Kamala Harris is compassionate, and Donald Trump's the monster.
Right.
A lot of the public don't see things that way. Leesa K, Donna, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.